Hey all, Tevs here, back playing some more Planet Zoo and back with episode 11 of my Tiguidou project. So this one is split into two parts. First part today, next part next week. Basically just ended up being kind of two halves of this habitat. That'll make sense when you see the rest of it next week, but yeah, it just ended up being kind of too long. I want to keep these reasonably short, or of a reasonable kind of length. So yeah, working my way down the hill, obviously continuing with the North America pack, which I'm really loving. And lots going on in this one, building this, basically just sort of continuing on what we did with the prairie dogs last week. So continuing this kind of small backstage buildings that are heavily detailed, and all that sort of front-facing guest stuff. So I've added this bit of building in, just doing a little bit of sort of landscaping around. We're coming down the hill towards. We're actually getting fairly close to Seal Beach now. Oh, this is just a little bit. I'll say this is whipping through, but I left this little staircase in. This is a little indication of my process, something that I would usually cut out. So putting this staircase in here, and we'll come back to this in a little bit. But you see me build this little staircase. It's sort of an implied staircase. I put it all together, and then decide it doesn't look right. I want to make it narrower, so I make it narrower. And then we'll see a recurrence of that staircase in a minute. And it's just a little indication of my process, because I've talked about this a little bit before, but there isn't an enormous amount of planning. It's pretty organic, and generally what I do is have a bit of an idea, I have a bit of a picture in my head, and that tends to evolve. There seems to be like an original kind of, almost like an initiation point of an idea. And then I just keep on kind of iterating on that and keep on evolving it as I'm doing it. And so as I'm doing it, new little additions come to my brain that are like, okay, well, what maybe like, oh, that might be quite cool. So here again, there's another little iteration. I do that, and then I'm like, actually really small, so let's make it a bit bigger. So this is all kind of elevated, sort of similar to the prairie dogs, but a slightly different version of it. So this is supposed to be like a kind of taiga setting. So it's supposed to be kind of fairly organic and rock. It's all supposed to be a combination of kind of foam materials and rock materials for the Arctic foxes to appear in. So yeah, putting a bit of foliage in. It's all kind of on a slant again. So again, from guest's point of view, you can see all the way to the back of the habitat, which I think works really well for these kind of smaller animals that you can sort of see pretty much everywhere they are. Obviously, when they go round that little gap to the backstage areas, you won't see them. And yeah, as you can see, it's actually fairly small. The habitat as it is fairly small, hence the kind of two parts of the habitat. Because when I put all this together, I was like, it's actually, I kind of wanted it to feel small, but not anywhere near the kind of space requirements for the animals. So we're working on their kind of actual building now. This is obviously all backstage, reusing my little block set. So just putting a few fixing up those little corners. And then I thought it would be cool to have like a sort of kennel area for them. So I cut a hole in that wall, or cut several holes in that wall. You can see my Arctic fox kind of just patiently sitting there wondering what I'm doing. And they were really cool actually, because they kind of just like I just unpaused it and he went straight through. So I was just checking to see. So it's a bit of a weird one. Like the hitboxes, sometimes you just struggle with getting the sizes right. So I just wanted to see and make sure that he could go through, and then they all sort of just kind of went through, obliged, and came through in here. Every time I unpaused it, they all just seemed like they were kind of interested in what I was doing. It was really funny. So yeah, just putting in, as I said, it's supposed to be, obviously these guys are they're a wolf effectively. They're a fox, but they're a carnivorous animal. So they need to be treated with kind of that sort of level of security and safety and stuff. And so yeah, making sure they've got a proper kind of robust looking cage system back here. And this is supposed to be the areas where they can kind of be separated, so that you can see there's several of those little doors, and they could be separated into those if the keepers wanted to do so. So yeah, create this little cage system, put in a little door in for it. I went through several versions of this door. I think you're only seeing one of them, but just kind of implying these doors into the actual habitats. Actually into these cages. It's not something that the keepers can go in. The keeper can access this area. In fact, no, they can't actually. The keepers can't access this area because there's a door on it. So the foxes can come in and out of here, but the keepers can't. All of that is just implied that the keepers would be coming in and out of this backstage bit. Yeah, so made the little doors. Then I thought I'd make some little implied kind of sliding doors to shut those off. So the idea being that maybe in the night they're kept in there, and then in the morning you kind of let them out by turning some sort of pulley system, which I'm about to create here. This little handle. Turn this little handle, and it somehow opens all the gates. Lets the foxes out. So yeah, just checking, and it was weird actually because the middle one, for some reason at this stage, the middle one stopped allowing the foxes to pass through, which is really strange because it's exactly the same set of pieces I've used. The hole size is exactly the same. I did it for that exact reason, to keep that all kind of similar. They did a bit of light in here. This is pretty much right up against the prairie dog habitat. That fence you can see through the window there is right up against the prairie dog habitat. So there's not a lot of space, but got a bit of a window. Also just a nice way to kind of break up the wall. Sometimes when you've got a big kind of plain wall, it's kind of handy to be able to put a window in. Right, so I picked this vent set off of the workshop. Links will be in the description, as always, to the whole collection of everything that I've used. I'm tending to use the workshop stuff fairly sparingly, but when I see something that's just kind of good and does the job, and I don't think I need to do anything better, I'm like, just use that, it makes sense. So I've used this before, and this ventilation set actually works pretty well. You saw it there. So I thought, well, this is supposed to be, obviously these animals are a cold climate animal, and we're in Canada, but I feel like this would probably be climate controlled, and that's why I've put the chipboard up on the roof. That's why I'm kind of working on this ventilation system so that they can be cooled and things. And then I had a bit of an interesting idea. So you see there's a few things going on there. I'll put this little kind of cold storage in, and this is where we go back to this set of stairs in a second, but put this little cold storage unit in that I've made before, and thought it'd be kind of cool to have a little implied kind of food prep area for them. But the only place I can get it in is that bit you see there just at the right hand side of the screen. That's where I had my door into this building. So you'll see in a second, and you've seen me move a little bit of stuff, and I'll talk about this more when we get to the real-time tour. But I'm just making some like pork chops or something, some implied meat on this little table, and I think I ended up putting some in the little box, and that's supposed to be what's in that freezer. And then I'm making a little chopping board. I don't know what this chopping board is. I'm looking at it. It's supposed to be, so there's my little box that's got these, I don't know, mutton chops or something in there. I thought it might be kind of fun to make a little knife, so kind of tried to make a little knife out of these couple of pieces. But yeah, fairly tight space. I mean, that's the thing with everything in Tiguidou. Because of the scale of the map, everything is dense. So when I want to kind of make a decision on moving something, like squeezing something in, I have to kind of do a little bit of redesign. So as you see, I've now moved that door, and I've now taken out the staircase, and I thought, well, it kind of makes sense that there was maybe a staircase there at some point. So I thought, well, how can I kind of get around the idea that there should be a staircase there? So I made this one that's kind of like it's almost like an old broken one. So I made it out of kind of timber, and then I just kind of put a heap of the stuff there, and then I actually go back and replace the barrier and stuff in a. You'll see that more in the tour. So back in the actual habitat now, and this is actually starting to move us towards the second part. So there's sort of an implied water flow coming through this, and then it ends up being somewhere you'll see in the second part of the habitat next week. So I'm going to leave you guys with the kind of last sort of 20 seconds or something, and I will join you again as ever, and we'll see all the little details in close up in the real-time tour. Right, peeps, welcome back to the tour. So I've just closed the gates of the zoo, so that's the last of the peeps walking out, or last of the guests. So as I said, we're going to start from up here today, make our way down, because I think it's just starting to come together. You can start to feel the context is things are starting to stitch together. You're going to see a few weird things. There's an exhibit box over there just hanging out, which we're sort of just using to sort of get the traffic of the guests working. We're also going to see a bunch of these places where these big kind of black screens blocking off the view. That's to stop you guys from seeing the new stuff that episode 2 is going to bring. So that'll be next week, as I said. So we'll come down the stairs this way. It's really starting to stitch together now. This is the first stage, I think, where this is really starting to feel like feels to me like a zoo. Starting to feel like a zoo. So as we come past the sign that we added last week, we've got the prairie dogs habitat hanging out on the right. And then as we come down the hill, and I think I'm quite happy with the way the hills kind of moved there. Feels a little bit rough. Still nothing on this right hand side yet. But that will come. And I think I made a couple of little tiny tweaks in the prairie dog habitat. Nothing amazing to show. I've got a couple of feedbacks about the bit of fence and stuff that I had at the back that I just kind of tightened up a little bit. Someone rightfully pointed out that the prairie dogs could probably get through it. So here's the first look at our Arctic foxes. We're going to start from the guest side, and then we'll go through that door in a minute and look at the backstage stuff. So as you can see, there's quite a lot more to come in the part 2 episode. But yeah, quite liking that little view. And as I said, it slopes up to them. It's supposed to be, as I said, it's supposed to be like it's a kind of taiga habitat. The idea is this is supposed to reflect the fact that these animals live in kind of both the tundra and the taiga. So we've got, you kind of can't see it, but they come from around this corner. I quite like that. They come from around this corner, and they actually quite happily come right down here. We've got one sleeping right here. I've got to change my signs. Obviously, all these signs always take a bit of updating because I'm making those all bespoke. So yeah, and then we'll do a bit of a closer look of that. It might be a bit tricky, but we might end up I think we'll probably end up in there looking at it in more detail. But I think that's quite a nice view, and I didn't want it to be huge. Oh, I've seen them jump into the box like that. That's pretty cool. I didn't want it to be a huge habitat. I wanted it to just feel small and kind of intimate. We'll see where the water goes in a minute, or you'll see a bit more of the water. You might have missed that in the build, but I actually ended up using glass to imply the water, because it's supposed to just be kind of implied. It's not supposed to be really a river or anything. So hopefully we can get through this gate. Okay, let's try this again, because as ever, Tadjikam always kind of wants you to end up on the roof. So we've ended up through this little gate. This is actually implied access, so there's no way of there's no path here, but this is supposed to be how they would get back out to kind of guest facing bits. Let's push through here. So yeah, and then this again is an implied gate, not actually something that they can use. And then yeah, here's my kind of, this is all supposed to be, as I said, slightly sort of climate controlled, although the windows are open at the moment, but hey ho. And then these are the little pens that they've got. So you can see the doors there. This guy's been isolated for whatever reason, so his door is shut. And yeah, as you can see, they can come in and chill if they want to. Quite happy that they come in and out. And this is basically the only bedding area. That's one of the things you've always got to do when you're trying to work out pathing of when you're trying to get animals to go to a particular part of your habitat. You have to give them a reason. Don't tend to just explore that much. They tend to want to have a path to a destination. So if you do something like, make sure you've only got bedding in one area, they'll make their way specifically to that. So they'll set out on a kind of little target to get to that. So yeah, I think that aircon stuff works really well in here. And then we've got this kind of lowered section that you saw. That's got the little kind of food prep bit. It's supposed to be, as I said, they're supposed to be like little mutton chops or something. I'm assuming they get fed meat in the zoo. And then here's my little cold storage thing. I created this ages ago for Missoula, and it obviously never got used. And then I think it had fruit and vegetables in it, and then I thought it'd just imply that there's supposed to be meat in there. So we can go out one of two doors. Obviously, the keepers. That's actually both of these are implied gates, implied doors. So let's go this way, and you can see them feeding. So that's them actually feeding there. It's a little plain up here. I think this probably needs a little bit more work. I'll probably do a little bit more to this. But yeah, there's my gates. So that one's closed, and this is obviously the system. In theory, this is the system that kind of controls them being opened and closed. And then this is all kind of, we go, as I said, blocked off there. And then this all needs some work out here still. But yeah, a bit of stuff done out there. So there's as I said, it was just a bit of I don't know, it ended up just being something I thought I'd include in the video. Because originally, if you remember from the video, the door was here. When I first built the building, the door was here. But nowhere would take that cold storage unit. So I thought, put it there, move the door, and then that obviously meant that this big staircase that was here didn't really make sense, because you didn't want to come to the bottom of the staircase and there'd be a door immediately. But the kind of natural pathing from up there would mean that you probably would sometimes want to move between these habitats. So I thought I'd leave something that sort of suggested that once that was the thing that was done, but then it had broken and never been repaired, and use the new barriers up there. So yeah, not quite sure where that's going yet, but we'll go through and we'll do a little walk up this ramp. So the keepers, right up until very, very recently, could get up here, and I don't quite know why. I think it's something to do with the collisions of these. When it was a ramp, they could walk up it, but now it's a step, they can't for some reason. But I'm kind of alright with that. So here we see we're obviously inside the habitat, and this is all sort of just suggested, as you can kind of see it. I couldn't get, well, I probably could have done without rebuilding the whole thing. Couldn't get water to sit nicely in there. So I thought I'd use I've done this before, but using the glass to sort of imply a level of water. It doesn't look great, but I think from ground level or from peak level it's fine. So it's supposed to be that it comes in there and it goes out through this pipe down here, basically. But just thought it gave a little bit of additional energy to the habitat that it needed. So that is that one, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Very much appreciate everyone watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As I said, next week's episode will be what's behind the big screen for part 2, and hopefully just a couple of other little polishing bits. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. My name's Taves. Take it easy.